Brush up on your theme park manners. This is Go Inform Podcast, episode 35. Hi guys, welcome to Theme Park Charm School. This is episode 35 and we are talking theme park etiquette today. I am Maven. I'm your instructor here at our Theme Park Charm School. And I thank you very much for joining me on this important episode of the show. Getting through the parks with 50,000 of your new best friends can be pretty challenging, and minding your manners is a great way to help things go just a little bit more smoothly as you go through your day at Disney World or at Universal or at Disneyland. Are really, actually, a lot of these manners apply to any place you're going that's going to have big crowds. And even though I know that none of you guys are punk rock hooligans who are going to cause a bunch of trouble, I still think it's a good idea to brush up on your theme park etiquette so that you don't make some of the most common mistakes that I have made, and I've seen pretty much everyone's made a lot of these mistakes when they've been in the theme parks. So we're all going to channel our inner Mary Poppins today and make our efforts to handle the crowds and move through the park with all of the grace that I know that you guys can carry yourself with. So again, thank you for joining me today. Thank you, Go Inform Pass holders, for sponsoring the episode and for sponsoring the podcast. You guys are awesome. Thank you for making this a listener-sponsored show. If you want to find out how to join our pass holder community, just go to goinform.net/passholders and join us. I'd love to have you as part of our group. Show notes for the show today will be at goinform.net/35. And I'm going to list out a lot of the stuff that I talk about here. I'll put in the show notes for reference. I'm also probably going to make like a infographic or something that you can save over to your Pinterest boards, because I know a lot of you guys use Pinterest to plan your trip. And so if you save a pin that's all about how to be on your best behavior in the parks, then that is a public service that you're providing everyone who's going to be joining you in those big crowds. So I'll put that in the show notes, and take a minute and hop over there and pin that to your theme park boards and share that with the world, because it's always good to have more people who understand how to get around with good etiquette in the parks, and that's just going to make everybody's day better. So please help share these tips with the world, because everyone who's going to set foot in one of those parks is going to thank you for that. Okay, so here's the thing, you guys. When you're visiting a theme park, you're going to be in close quarters with a lot of people all day long. It's probably going to be hot on top of all of that. Your feet might be sore, you're going to get tired, and you're in an unfamiliar place. And all of those things are going to cause even Mary Poppins or Snow White to get a little grumpy at times. And so that's part of the reason that I want to share some tips with you right now, so you can be thinking about it and be aware that your behavior is going to affect the people around you. And so there's a lot of common sense in most of these tips, but there's a few things that are just kind of etiquette that you might not know, and that I certainly didn't know before I went to the parks. And so the first thing, and the most common sense thing, is to be nice. So of course, I know you guys are all really nice. I hear from you a lot, and I know that you guys are really cool people and very friendly and really kind. And so please carry that with you into the parks, especially not only in terms of kindness to your fellow travelers, especially to your own family and friends that you're traveling with. Like, try to stay positive and be kind and be aware of the needs of the people around you. But also, most especially, be kind and be respectful to the people working in the parks, because they're just doing their job. And really, you guys, like 99% of the people that are working in these theme parks are there because they really do want you to have an awesome vacation. And so if something is going wrong and you need help from a cast member at Disney or an employee at Universal or wherever you are, always please approach them with respect and kindness. Of course, that's going to go farther anyway than if you're grumpy and angry, and please don't be rude. And so always think about those things. And you know, those cast members are going to make your day a lot better. And one thing that you can do to make their day better is you can actually go to guest services and say that that cast member made your day better. That is one of their favorite things. It's to get that positive feedback and for their boss to hear that positive feedback. So, be kind, be respectful in your dealings with the employees at the park, and think about ways that you can just make their day a little bit better too, because they're really working hard. They're out there especially in the summer, they're out there in that Florida heat, and they're probably wearing some big, heavy uniform, and they're standing on their feet all day, and still they're doing it with a smile. So please give them a smile back and show them a little of the kindness that they're showing you. And I know that goes without saying, you guys are awesome, but again, keep it in mind, in the back of your mind, when you get tired at the end of the day and something goes sideways. Be kind, be friendly. Okay, so in terms of the tips that I have for you today, I've kind of broke them up into different sort of phases of your day or places that you might experience these things. So the first place that most of us end up when we are going into the park is going through the security and going through the gate. So a few things that you can do to make this easier for everybody. One is, as you're approaching the security line, if you have any kind of a bag on you, it's going to be checked. So at the Disney parks, they're going to actually have you stop at a table and open your bag so they can look inside of it. At the Universal parks, most of the time, what they do is put the bags through an X-ray machine, so you don't have to actually open them. But in either case, as you're approaching that security line, get your bags ready so that when you get up there, you're not holding up the line. So at Disney, at any park, it really means taking it off your shoulders, because you're going to have to take it off of you to put it through the X-ray machine or to hand it to the security guard. At Disney, they're going to want all the zippers open, and most of the time they're going to want you to do that. So while you're approaching the line, while you're in line waiting for your turn to have your bag checked, open up all the zippers on the bag and have it ready so that they can look inside. Don't hold up the line by waiting until you get up there and then, pulling it off your shoulder and realizing you have another bag that you got to open up and, whatever. So get it ready so that it makes the line move faster, and it just makes the security people's job a lot easier. If you are passing through a metal detector, which is a more and more common practice, and actually even at Universal, you'll pass through a metal detector for some of the rides if you go on any of the more extreme roller coaster type rides. So if you are going through a metal detector, check your pockets before you get to the metal detector, because, if every person walking through that metal detector has to walk through it 3 times because they keep having to take stuff out of their pockets, then that's really, really slowing the line down. So have your stuff out of your pockets so you can put it to the side and just walk straight through the metal detector. And if you are approaching a ride at Universal that requires a metal detector, that means no, you can't have stuff in your pockets, and they will send you back. So don't try to sneak anything through the metal detector, because again, it's just going to slow everybody else down while you back up and put it away or whatever. So be ready at security, and then you'll just whisk right through. It speeds it up for you and for everybody else. As you're approaching the park gate, that is the time you want to make sure that you have your park ticket ready. Also, your kids' park tickets. Again, don't wait until right when you get up to the turnstile to try to figure out where your ticket is. Have it ready, have it out. If you're using a magic band at Disney World, just have it ready. And so that way you'll be ready to just, scan the ticket and move right through the line. One thing that you can do to be even more prepared for this kind of stuff is listen to my first day in the parks episodes. I have one about Universal Orlando. That's episode 7 here in the archives. And episode 18 is about your first day in the parks at Disney World. And both of those episodes, I talk about what to expect when you go through security and how they scan your park tickets at the gate, and kind of, what it's going to be like when you actually get up to that turnstile. And if you already have that information, even if you've never been to the park before, that is going to make you so much more of a pro when you approach those gates. So if you have time after this episode and you are curious about how those procedures work, go back and look up those past episodes and give them a listen, because that is going to speed up your trip through security, your trip through the gate. It's going to help you get into the park faster. And it's just going to help everyone else get in the park faster too, when you're not holding up the line while you're trying to fumble for your ticket or figure out how to get it scanned. And I know it's hard if you have little kids to try to get them ready and whisk them through the gate. And of course, the employees who are working the gate, they understand that, and they are there to help you get your kids' ticket read and get their fingerprint read and all that stuff. But one thing that you can do to help with that is, again, get familiar with the process of what it's like to go through that gate. And then if you got little kids, they love to pretend, and they love to get ready, help get ready for the trip and all that stuff. So, mock something up at your house and pretend that you're going through the turnstile. I mean, just give them a chance to live it a little bit before you even go. And then they can kind of own that when they walk up to the gate. They're going to be ready to give their ticket over or scan their band or whatever. So I'm sure, too, that you can see this on YouTube. There's got to be some YouTube videos of how to scan your ticket or how to scan your magic band at the parks. And you know what, you guys, I'll do a little search. And if I can find something like that, I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put a link for you. So just, anything you can do to kind of speed up the process. Once you've done it once or twice, you'll be a pro and it won't be a problem. But just be ready even that first time to just power right through. Okay, so now that you're in the parks, there are some big things to know. And most of this is common sense, but just do your best to keep this in mind. First one, don't stop in the middle of the path. So, we've all done this. I've done it too. Nobody's perfect. We've all done this where, you're walking through in the crowd and all of a sudden you need to look at your map or you need to take a picture or whatever it might be. And your first instinct is just to literally just stop right now, right where you are. And if you've ever been behind, and we all have been behind someone who does this, it's not good. So pull over to the side, you guys, and keep in mind that there are thousands of people behind you. They might not be right behind you right this second, but they will be if you stop, if you just stop and stand there. So get out of the way if you need to stop. If you want to take a picture, do it so that it's not blocking everybody else behind you. If you aren't sure where to go, pull over, take a look at the map, and figure it out on the side of the path before you are just walking through some land and blocking. Same goes for when you approach a ride entrance. I don't know how many times I've seen groups of people stopping and literally blocking the entrance to an attraction and like looking at a map or trying to decide if they should go on that ride or whatever. So if you need to have a little conference, do that off to the side. Don't block the ride entrance and certainly don't block the path. The opposite of stopping suddenly is don't run. So as tempting as it is to race to the next thing, running is strongly discouraged by the park employees and can get you in kind of big trouble. So don't do that. And stay in your, if you're with a big pack of people, if it's rope drop or something like that, just be respectful to those people around you and stay in your spot. If you're at the head of the line and you get into the park early and there's a lot of other people doing the same thing. Even though you may not be the first person onto the ride, you will still, even if some of these people around you kind of crowd in and sort of get ahead of you, you will still be one of the first people on the ride. You will still get on and off it way ahead of most of the rest of the people in the park. So do not sweat it if your place in line gets a little jumbled up as you're moving through with a big crowd. It's just part of the way it works when you show up for something like rope drop. And it can also happen during the middle of the day if it's just a really busy park day. So just know that happens, and don't try to run or force your way forward in the crowd, because that just causes stress, and it's not really very safe either. So be okay with being one of the pack, not necessarily first. And especially if you have a stroller, we need to all be careful of people who are pushing strollers because they have a stroller and that cannot be easy to move through a big crowd of people. But the same goes with if you are pushing a stroller, be aware of the people around you and, try not to run into them. It's hard, I know, because especially if fireworks just ended and it's a crazy busy crowd, people are going all different directions, but do your best not to run people down with your stroller. And if you see someone with the stroller, give them a little extra space so they can actually maneuver. They want to get out of the park too, or get in or whatever. So just give strollers a little room. And if you have a stroller, just be careful of the people around you. This also goes doubly true for people with scooters or wheelchairs. It is not easy to push somebody in a wheelchair through a Disney park or any theme park. So if you see someone pushing a wheelchair, give them some extra space. That thing does not stop very fast. It's having to move. Once you get it moving, you don't really want to have to stop. So please be kind to people who are pushing wheelchairs. Scooters too, give them some room. The people riding on those scooters probably don't drive those very often. So especially when they're backing up, you guys, give them some extra space, because I have seen They don't always look. Okay. So scooters, give them a little extra space. If you're driving the scooter, do your best to not run down anyone, and just, be aware that that's sort of an extra challenge if people have strollers, scooters, wheelchairs, anything like that. All right, you guys. So now we're going to get on a ride. Yay. So, a lot of these etiquette rules are going to apply to some of the slower, like dark rides that you're going to find, especially at the Disney parks. You're going to have a little bit more etiquette to worry about than at the Universal parks or on the more extreme rides. Because when you're going on the Tower of Terror or a big roller coaster or something like that, you're pretty much just going to be sitting down and hanging on and going for a ride. But if you're going on something like Pirates of the Caribbean or, something that's kind of slow and it's a dark ride, please keep in mind that there's other people in the ride with you, and be aware of how your behavior might be impacting everybody else's experience in the ride. So pictures, phones, all that stuff, please don't light up the attraction with lights from your phone or your camera. So obviously, don't use a flash in the dark ride. That's definitely a no-no. And Miss Maven's going to have to come and shake her finger at you if you use flash. So don't do that. And if you really need to, you want to have a picture, video, or whatever, hold your phone so that the screen isn't lighting up anything besides like your lap or whatever, because those lights in the dark rides, I mean, everybody's eye just automatically goes to wherever something is lit. And even if you think that you're just quietly taking a video or a picture with no flash, the screen on your phone, especially on a bigger phone, it can be really bright. I mean, it seems really bright in a dark room. So keep that to a minimum. If there's, if you're okay with just watching it on YouTube that somebody else shot, then don't even do a video or don't take a picture. You're going to get more enjoyment out of the ride almost every time if you're not looking through a screen while you're doing it. So keep lights to a minimum. Another thing, when you enter an attraction where it's a theater, or maybe it's something like Pirates of the Caribbean where it's a vehicle where there's a lot of people and there's rows in the vehicle, if you're wearing mouse ears or something tall, like some kind of hat or whatever, take your hat off so that you're not blocking other people's view of the attraction. And if it just was a pouring down rainstorm and you have a wet poncho on, take it off before you get on, unless you're getting on a wet ride like Splash Mountain or something. If you're getting on a ride that's typically wouldn't be wet, take your poncho off so you don't get the seat all wet. Usually the park employees will tell you to take it off before you load, but just take it off when you get into the line so that you have a chance to sort of shake it out and let it drip. Don't shake the water all over your neighbors in line though, but take it off and stow it away while you're riding on the ride, so people don't want to get more wet when they just came inside to avoid the rainstorm. So don't get them more wet with your wet poncho. And of course, a top tip here, cutting in line is bad karma. So don't do that. It's really not cool to send people ahead of you in the line and then you're going to catch up and you are going to walk past, say, excuse me, like 10,000 times to get up to your group. No. Everybody in your group should be in line together. There's very few exceptions to that rule. So don't cut in line. Don't try to cut the line. especially like for an attraction. I mean, if you're approaching the park gates and the park hasn't even opened yet, and your part of your group can hold your spot in the line before the gates open, and you need to go get a cup of coffee or whatever, I think that's a little bit different. Usually. But if you are facing a long line at Flight of Passage or something, don't send people ahead to hold your spot and then you try to cut through the queue in the ride, because that's just going to aggravate a lot of other people and it's really not fair. So don't send your group in line without you, unless you're planning to ride without them. Hey, if that works though, you can always ride single and you might get on the rides faster than them anyway. So for more information about that, just refer to the last episode, you guys. That might solve all your problems. Okay, short break here just to talk about a little podcast etiquette. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's been writing reviews and leaving reviews for the show. You guys have impeccable podcast manners. Thank you so much for doing that. It is a very nice thing to do if you are enjoying a show, and not just this show, but any podcast you're listening to subscribe to the show. So look for the subscribe button in your podcast app. That means that you will get every new episode automatically whenever it comes out. So that makes it easier for you. And also, if you have a minute to leave a rating or a review wherever you listen to the show, that helps everybody else find out about the show. And plus, whoever is making the show, it's really cool to read your reviews. So again, thank you so much to any of you guys who have written reviews for the show. And thank you in advance to those of you who are going to write one. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for showing your good podcast manners. All right, back to the parks. So another place where good manners really can help make things easier for everyone is when you are in a big crowd watching something like fireworks or a parade. First one that I think most anybody would tell you is don't put your kids on your shoulders. So keep your kids. I know it's hard. The kids have a hard time seeing. You're going to want to hold them on your hip, or I hate to say it, but you might want to just get there really early so you get a good viewing spot, or make some kind of plan to help your kids be able to see the show. Because if you put your kids up on your shoulders, then now whoever's behind you, they can't see the show either. And it just is a domino effect. So keep kids down low. Do your best to help them see the show without blocking other people's view. And, again, take off your ears and hats and, put your balloons down and all that stuff. Especially if we're talking about like a fireworks show that's up high, don't put stuff up there to block people's view. Another thing that's super common is phones, like doing video or pictures with the fireworks or the parade in the background. Keep your phone, don't hold your phone up. Again, it blocks people's view, and then all they're seeing is all those screens. So put your phone down like at eye level to take your pictures, and try not to leave it up there for the whole show. So that way the person behind you is seeing the show with their own eyes, and hopefully they're not also holding their phone up super high. But it's just going to make it a much more pleasant experience. It's just the same as in those dark rides. Your eyes just go straight to those lights, and instead of seeing, what the Imagineers or the designers of the ride want you to see, people are just seeing this screen. So keep your phones out of the sight line of your other fellow guests. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about etiquette when you're actually waiting in line for a ride. So one of the things a lot of people like to do, and some of these queues, these waiting areas for the rides are really elaborate, and they're really cool and very photogenic, and it's a cool place to take a stop and take pictures, take a selfie or whatever. That is totally okay. You can stop and take a picture while you're waiting in line. But here's what I want you to do. If you stop to take a picture and the line is moving, just wave the people behind you past. Don't block their path just because you want to stop and take a picture. They, let them go. They want to keep moving. So just give them a nice friendly wave, let them walk past you. And then after you take your picture, you can step back and into the line and keep moving. Nobody's going to block you from stepping back into the line if you stopped just to take a picture. But everyone's going to appreciate that they are able to keep moving even though you did stop. So that's a big one. Another thing that is tricky, but do your best, is try to keep your kids from jumping on everything and just laying on the floor. And it's hard because especially at the end of a day, everybody's tired and you just do kind of just want to lay on the floor, even as an adult. But try to keep your kids respectful of the neighbors around you. So, you use your space bubble, give other people their space bubble while you're waiting in line so that you're not impacting, whoever's standing next to you with the behavior of your group. So, try to keep it under control. And I'm kind of giggling because I know it's really hard. But it's also hard to be the adult standing next to a pack of kids who are kind of running wild while you're waiting in line for something. So if those are your kids, then make sure that they understand that that's just not good etiquette, guys. So one thing that you can do for your kids if you have a long line is have some ideas for things you can do while you're waiting in line. So there are a lot of cool suggestions for things to do while you wait in line. And in fact, that would be a cool future episode. So if you are listening to this in the future, I will link to the show notes if I do an episode about that. But in any case, there's a lot of cool things you can do in line besides, just running around crazy. So Disney has just introduced a new app called Play Disney Parks. And this app has actually got trivia questions. It's also got challenges you can do while you're in line for some of the rides. And I know this app's going to be expanding as it moves forward. So if you're going to any of the Disney parks, that is something to have on your phone because it's a thing that you can be doing in line. There's other things you can do. There are, like, if you're at Disney, you can look for hidden Mickeys, which are images of Mickey Mouse that are just randomly placed throughout the parks, but they put them in the queues, and some of them have even a lot of them. So there's an app you can get on your phone for that. There's a book. I'll link to it in the show notes. So if you want to get that and have it with you it's kind of like a scavenger hunt while you're in line. And there's other things you can do. I mean, you can play games, different kinds of games. You can play that heads up game. It's very commonly seen in lines. There's a lot of stuff that you can be doing while you wait in line. So think about those things before you get there so that you can try to keep everybody entertained, even if you have to stand around for quite a while before you get on the ride. Okay, and then here's something else that you might not know if you're not more of a theme park insider. But one of the things that will commonly happen in the ride queue when you get up to the front where they are loading the ride, this is that the park attendant at the front, they will frequently have a situation where it's like they have their whole thing all filled up. They kind of have a corral usually that everybody gets lined up into the spots to load onto the ride. And a lot of times they'll have big groups and they'll take up most of that space, but then there'll be room for like 1 or 2 or 3 people to fill the entire ride vehicle up. So what you will see frequently is that the park attendant who's doing this loading, they will they'll ask you when you get to the front of the line, they'll ask how many are in your group. Let's just say that there's space for 2 more people on the next ride vehicle and the group standing in front of them has 4. A lot of times what they will do is they will hold up their hand and they will say, is there a party of 2? I'm looking for a party of 2. And pay attention, because if you are a party of 2 and you're fairly close to the front of the line, they will actually signal for you to come through, cut in front of the other people and come up there and take that spot for 2 people. So if you have a smaller group, I'd say 3 or fewer people, when you are approaching the front of the line to where they're going to load, pay attention to what's going on up there. Because if you see that park attendant waving their hands and showing how many fingers, 2 or 3 or whatever that they need, you can raise your hand and tell them, I have 2. And if they see you and you're the first one to raise your hand, they will wave you through. And part of the reason I'm mentioning this in the etiquette section is that if you are in front of those people and you see them coming through, that is why. Okay, so they're not sneaking past you. They have been instructed to come through in ahead of you. So watch for that and keep that in mind too, you guys. If you have a smaller group or if you're willing to break up your group, that is a cool way to kind of get on a ride faster, especially having just a couple of people going through the line together as opposed to a big group of 18 people makes you a lot more nimble when it comes to loading onto the ride. So keep that in mind if you're trying to sort of speed up your time through the parks, and you might just get lucky and get to skip to the front of the line a few times if you're paying attention. All right, this is a long class, isn't it? There's a lot of etiquette that I thought of, and I actually asked for help from some of my other podcast friends to figure out what were some of the most common things that we see in the parks and that we think that people should know about. And yeah, it's quite a bit, isn't it? So yeah, I should thank my fellow podcasters who helped me come up with this list. Big shout out to Carla and Holly over at Theme Park Films podcast. You guys, it's a super fun show. You should listen to it. And to Rich and Joey at One Little Spark and Gabriel at Theme Park Duo. Those guys all contributed to the conversation as I was working to get this list put together, and those guys all have cool shows, you guys. So look for their shows and give them a listen. And also thank you, Sarah Varney from the soon to be launched Disney Park Princess podcast. So that one, I'm really excited for that one to be launching. Sarah's launching that in the fall of 2018. So look for that one too. And thanks you guys for helping make this list and sharing your park wisdom with everyone else so that we can all have an awesome time in the parks. So just a few more tips for you guys. The next one is about transportation. So this is something that you're especially going to see at Disney World. There is a lot of Disney transportation that many people take to get between the parks and get between the resorts and the parks. And it's public transportation. So there's some etiquette surrounding this. And one of the things that I think is really important to be mindful of is if you are on the Disney bus or the monorail or whatever conveyance it might be, and you have a seat and you see somebody get on who clearly could use your seat, let them have your seat. So it might be elderly people. It might be a pregnant lady. It could be a kid too. I mean, sometimes at the end of the day, you'll see these kids are just like melting. Now, you may need that seat. So I'm not going to judge you if you keep your seat. But if there is a possibility that you could stand for just a little while that person can sit, then it's always nice. It's a nice act of kindness to give up your seat for someone else so that they can have that rest time on the bus or on the monorail or whatever. And you're just going to help make their day just a little bit better. So keep that in mind when you're seeing people board the bus. Also related to Disney buses, when you are waiting at the bus stop for the Disney bus and the bus pulls up, what's going to happen is the bus is going to unload through both the front and the back doors. So when they get there, everybody can get off whatever door is the closest to them. But when they load the bus, everybody's going to load through the front door. So when you are lining up for the bus, just keep in mind that there's only one line. Even though there's two doors, you're going to go in through the front door. The only time that anybody goes in through the back door on the Disney buses is if they have a wheelchair or a scooter. So when the bus pulls up and everybody gets off, and if there is someone waiting to get on the bus with a wheelchair or a scooter, what you're probably going to see is everyone's going to get off the bus, and then the bus driver's going to close the doors to the bus. Don't panic. It doesn't mean they're driving away. It just means that they are getting it ready to allow that scooter or wheelchair to get on. So they have to lower the bus, and then they have to open that back door and put a ramp out to wheel get the wheelchair or the scooter onto the bus, and it takes a couple of minutes. So use your patience and be glad that you aren't in a scooter or wheelchair and you can just walk in the front, and let the bus driver do their job. So they're going to load that person, and usually their group, they'll just get them all on the bus in the back door. Then they will close that back door, and then they'll open the front door and everybody can get on. So that is just one of those procedures that if you've not seen it before, it might aggravate you a little because you might be thinking, why can't all of us just load in both doors? It's just the way they do it. So don't try to, it's actually not going to benefit you at all if you try to make a second line at the back door of the bus, because you're not going to be able to get on that way. So that is how they load the buses at Disney. Okay, one other thing that we see a lot in terms of kind of slowing down a line at the parks is at the quick service food counters. So often there is a big line for people to order food at the quick service restaurants, especially at Disney World. And so that gives you tons of time to decide what you're going to eat and what everybody in your group's going to have before you get up to the cashier. So do that. Make sure you know what everybody wants and how they want to have it before you get up there to the cashier. It's just going to speed up the line. Don't wait until you get up there to decide what you want and ask everybody in your group and take 20 minutes to order your food. Just be ready, hop up there, and you'll already know the order because you've been thinking about it for the 15 minutes you were waiting in line. And that the people behind you will be so grateful that you were quick and you were succinct and you took care of business. But another really good tip with this, and this is one of those line skipping tricks, is that at Disney World now, almost all of the quick service restaurants have a mobile ordering option. And this is something you can do on your phone in the My Disney Experience app. And all you have to do is click, there's a menu that says mobile order, and you just click on that and you can choose your restaurant and you can choose your food. You can customize stuff. You can put stuff on the side. You can pretty much have them make anything any way you want that's on their menu. And you can put your entire order in through the app. And you can do this while you're waiting in line for a ride. You don't have to wait till you get to the restaurant. So you can put your order in through the mobile order. And then when you're ready to go into the restaurant and pick it up, you just hit the button and tell them to make your order. And then all you have to do is walk up to the mobile order counter and pick it up. And that is a really cool way to not only speed up your day, but you're staying out of the line of all the other people who don't know about this and are waiting in line. So you're making their wait faster too, because you're not one more person in line with them. And it's really a win-win. So use mobile ordering when it makes sense for you. And you guys, you can even use this just to order a drink. You don't have to, there's no minimum order with it or anything. It's super efficient. And it is an act of kindness for everybody else who needs to pick something up from that restaurant. So know about that and check that out. And make sure you have that My Disney Experience app on your phone too, you guys. You totally need that. All right. And the last tip that I have is to keep your negative vibes internal as best as you can. These parks are a sea of humanity, and it is one of those things where a smile can go a long way, but so can a frown. So if you are having trouble, if you are feeling grumpy, think about how you can solve that problem without infecting all the other people around you. So this is a good time to think about getting a snack, taking a break, getting in the air conditioning, whatever it might be, but keep those vibes from spreading to everybody else around you. This is a big deal for most people to go to the parks, especially when they're traveling. Some people are coming from around the world and I know some of you are listening. Hi guys in Europe and Australia. You're so cool. So people don't want to come from that far, spend all that money and time and not have a good time. And sometimes it's overwhelming and things can go sideways, and it is a lot to realize that you came that far and right now you're not having a good time. Think about how you can solve that problem for yourself, and don't spread that negative vibe to the other guy who came around the world and is having a good time right now and wants to keep it that way. So please try to stay positive and take yourself out of the crowd if you need a moment to get it together a little bit. If you're feeling frustrated or tired or whatever it is, solve that problem in the privacy of your own space and let everybody else carry on with their big vacation. It is magical to visit these places and to get outside of your usual daily routine. And it's not always a positive every minute, kind of thing. But remember that people are here for that. They're here for an escape and they're here to have fun. And so, do what you can to, bring a smile to the people around you and not a frown. So that is probably the number one tip. If you don't take anything else away from this episode, is to stay positive, at least outwardly, you guys, so that you can help everybody else in the park also have a magical time. And spreading these tips is a great way to also help everybody else have a good time. So again, I'm encourage you to share the show notes page and the images from the show notes out to your social media or to Pinterest, and help us spread the word, because the more people who have these fine manners that you're learning here at the Miss Maven's Charm School, the better off everybody will be in the parks. And the show notes, again, are over at goinformed.net/35. And thank you, you guys. It is very good manners to share that information with anybody that you can. And again, I just want to thank you for listening to this very long episode. And I really want you to have a great time in the parks. And I hope that this helps you with that. Thanks again, pass holders, for sponsoring the show. And for all of you who are writing ratings and reviews, that's awesome. And I will catch you next time. And I hope you have a charming vacation.